We just saw an interest rate cut, and it's basically the market saying, hey, I'm on sale, go build something.
Hey everyone, I'm Alfred.
And I'm Rebecca. Thanks for joining us. Today we're going to talk about the latest interest rate cut and what that means for developers.
Yeah, so it was the recent interest rate cut. What it does and what it means is that it's stimulating, the Reserve Bank of Australia is looking at stimulating the economy, right? So they're printing more money, effectively allowing access to cheaper money, which obviously helps developers in that regards, because we're in a position where there are going to be more buyers. And also what it does do is it gives the ability for owners out there or potential buyers to have a greater borrowing capacity. So all of a sudden, you know, that 0.25%, Which
doesn't sound like a lot to some, 0.5%,
no.
But if you're a developer and you're borrowing millions to construct, you know, that's the
developer's saving, right? So the developer's saving is obviously we're saving that 0.25% of the whatever we borrow. So you know, if it's millions, then you're saving several $1,000s a month in that regards. But the beauty or the benefit from a developer's perspective is that all of a sudden the potential buyers out there have the ability to borrow more, right? So the serviceability drops, they have the ability to borrow more, which now gives them more incentive to go out and spend that money. And all of a sudden you might have one or two extra people at an auction, right? Rather than having, say, one that's really keen on the property, now you might have another person bidding war potential. So that's the benefit, the major benefit from our perspective as developers, that when the rates do drop or when they're cut, it allows the potential buyers out there more money to borrow, obviously saving them a couple of bucks in their pocket, but it's not a huge deal. But the huge deal from our perspective is now we could have more potential buyers out in the market, which drive the price up, the supply and demand. Other thing too is obviously from when you mentioned the developer's perspective, that, you know, cash flow, you know, from a developer's perspective, it saves us a couple bucks, obviously helps us with the cash flow. But from a buyer's perspective, you're saving also a couple bucks as well, which, you know, you're going to go out and maybe spend on a holiday or stimulate the economy in that aspect of things, right? So cash flow, it does have a significant boost to the economy, because now we're saving a couple bucks and we typically we will spend that.
So let's talk about how the rate cut can support higher valuations.
Yeah, I mean, look, ultimately when you have a borrowing capacity increase because all of a sudden the rates dropped, and let's say I'm a buyer, I'm a first home buyer or wanting to upgrade the family home, all of a sudden that 0.25 has given me an extra, you know, depends on income and what have you, but it helps, you know, increase my borrowing capacity by tens of thousands of dollars, if sometimes even hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? So what that does is that allows me to enter into the market, and, you know, there might be multiple personality like myself that are going down that path to, you know, go out and want that house across the road. So what that does is it just increases the number of buyers that have the ability to buy that property at a higher price or what have you. So like I mentioned earlier, you might be in a position where if you're selling townhouses or a development, you know, you're in a position where you might have 2 or 3 buyers, an extra buyer because of this rate cut, which, you know, supply demand. When you've got 2 buyers, it's going to, you know, drive up that price a bit more because there might be a bidding war. So that's where that stimulation comes from.
So if you do have any existing projects that you want to look at, is now a good time to kind of look at it again and see if you can rework your funding strategy?
Yeah, I mean, look, ultimately it depends on the circumstances, but it's a welcome when you see rate cuts. As a developer, when you're any investor out there, it's a welcome because money is cheaper, and having access to money. Money's got to make money, and when you have access to more money, you try and make more money. Ultimately, definitely worth investigating your options. And every state is different. Victoria's had its struggles because of taxes and all that type of stuff, and there's states that do have more attractive incentives, but there is a definite more push to coming back to Victoria because we've had sort of our challenges over the last 12 to plus months. There's multiple investors from interstate that have approached us and said, look, we see tremendous opportunity in Victoria now. We want to get in, and with this rate cut, it sort of just even compounds their interest a bit more.
Yeah. So if you are considering a new development, we do offer prelim site assessments so that we can take a look at your site and see what your options are. Just check in the comments below where you'll find a link.
Thanks for tuning in. If you've got any questions, reach out. We're always here to help.
Until next time, take care and happy developing.